Okay, so Sarah, let's talk a little bit about your experience of having PTSD after a medical event recently, and then being able to rewire that with brain training so that it doesn't really affect you anymore. Can you tell us a little bit about just briefly what you went through that caused the PTSD in the first place?
Yeah, so I had a surgery and there were some complications in it that could have ended up costing me my life. And from there on out, I experienced a lot of, ruminating thoughts and anxiety, lots of trouble sleeping, and just the PTSD was felt like it was always with me. That experience was kind of following me everywhere.
Mhm.
Um, a sort of, I guess, haunting might be the correct word for that.
Mhm.
Um, and it wasn't until that we did do some of the brain retraining that I kind of got some relief there and was able to sort of move forward with my life.
Yeah. Okay. So when you started doing the brain training, tell us what that was like for you. Like, how did you find the process? Were you surprised about how fast it was or how well it worked?
Yeah, I was definitely a little bit hesitant because sometimes parts of it feel a little bit silly. But
Yeah.
as I learned why that is and that it should feel silly and that that's helpful, um, I found it to be a really empowering tool and something that I could, use on my own as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, once I got into it, it was good. I think it was 2 or 3 sessions. It was really fast. That was the biggest thing for me. I didn't want to, I felt like I'd been dwelling on this event nonstop. I didn't want to keep dwelling on it.
Mhm.
So that was a huge relief for me, was that we didn't have to. It wasn't us sitting there talking about it and unpacking it. It was us finding a solution and fixing it.
Mhm. Totally. So, what was it like inside your brain after doing the rewiring work?
Like it was before the trauma. Um, there's always going to be uneasiness around surgeries, right? Like that's not unusual, but it was nowhere near. It wasn't consuming. It didn't feel like, a death threat.
Yeah.
uh, and so I could go into things, any sort of medical, experience, with a lot more confidence than I'd had before.
Nice. Did the anxiety related to the event go away and the insomnia related to that?
Yeah, that part went away probably first.
Nice.
Especially the insomnia. I found really, really quick relief there, probably even after one session. The
Nice.
insomnia was like the first thing to get back, which was wonderful because, of course, you're anxious if you haven't slept. And
Yeah.
so once I was able to go to sleep and sleep well again, and we had, another session, then yes, I could chip away at the anxiety.
Cool. Um, and I think one of the other things that we really worked on letting go of was, a lot of other emotions or, towards the surgeons and people that were involved. There was a lot of anger and other things that came up understandably. And I think some of those things actually took the longest, but it did seem like you got pretty good resolution of those too.
Yeah, and I mean those take a lot of grace on my part to get rid of, and a lot of thinking and understanding of, everybody's human and things like that. But those absolutely were the harder parts to let go of, because I felt correct in my anger.
Right.
And in a lot of ways I was, but I don't want to walk around with anger. So even though it's, valid, it doesn't mean that it's light or something that I want to carry.
Right. Or healthy to carry, right?
No, yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people who have been through traumatic events are in the same situation. If there was a, perpetrator and a victim sort of scenario, like, of course, they feel justified in being really upset about what happened. And it makes sense. But at the same time, it's not really healthy to carry that for the rest of your life. So I think it's really cool that you were able to let go of that too.
Yes, me too.
Um, so the next thing I wanted to ask you about is what was it like going into your next surgery? Because that surgery that caused the trauma was not your last surgery.
No, it wasn't. And I think that interim was where a lot of the anxiety was. And so was I nervous going into the last one? Of course, it's surgery,
Mhm.
but I went into it feeling very calm the day of. I did sort of the exercises that we had gone over the day before. Um, and I really went into it calmly and confidently, especially knowing that, I had all the tools I could have in order to be calm. So now I just have to let the experts do their job. And
Mhm.
I couldn't have asked for a better outcome. So,
That's awesome. Good. I'm so glad you were able to do that because it kind of wasn't a choice, right? So it was like,
right. Yeah.
thank goodness.
There was no choice at all. So,
Yeah.
that was really scary. And I was, to the point where I didn't care if it was an hour-long procedure or 6 hours long. Everything was scary to me, after the initial one. So to be able to go into one that was 6 hours long was, that much more to overcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, that's awesome. So now when you look back on that traumatic event, like what happens inside you? Do you have a bodily response to it? What happens in your mind? Can you just like walk people through that?
yeah,
Because people who've never rewired a trauma probably can't even imagine feeling about it
yeah.
or experiencing it the way you do now.
It's just a big sigh of relief. Honestly, like it's done. It's all done. And it's behind, and I say it's done, not like the surgery's done. Obviously that's done, but like that trauma is behind me. That heavy burden to carry is off my shoulders now.
Yeah.
The anger is gone, all of that. Like it's gone. It's okay. It's time to move on. I survived it. Okay.
Yeah. So there is no trauma response in your body anymore when you think about it.
No, and there was definitely like this kind of before where I would just get really tense or like scared, like
Yeah.
when you're jumpy.
Yes.
And no, there's none of that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. I think so many people would love to hear that that is even a possibility and have no idea that it is a reality
Right.
for that people can feel that way about their traumas.
And quickly. That's a
Yeah.
huge thing.
Yep.
Like we're all busy, and I mean you have to make time for yourself and for your healing and everything, but it's much easier to make time for yourself when it's only, a couple hours.
Yeah. And it's not going to go on forever, right? It's not a couple hours
Right.
every week for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think anybody today really has that much time or wants to give that much time to it.
No. No.
Okay, great. Well, is there anything else you want to tell us about that experience or what, other people you think other people might want to know that need that?
Even if you feel like your trauma is too big for this, it's worth a try. Just give it a try. I think I felt that way for sure. I felt like what's the point? I don't really know if this is going to work, but at the same time, if you're desperate enough, you'll try anything. So
Mhm.
not that I want anyone to be desperate enough, but if you are, go ahead and try it, because I think people will be really pleasantly surprised at how effective it is and quick.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that with
Yeah.
everybody.
Thank you.